Hey everyone, let's do some restorative yoga for sleep. So I don't have anything too complicated here. I have a folded throw blanket. It's not very big at all. You could use a bigger blanket if you want something thicker to work with. I have two small bolsters that I made in another video by cutting a yoga mat in half and then rolling up the two cut pieces. I'll put a link to that down below. I have a yoga blanket and then I have a spare yoga mat. So I'm just gonna do this sequence on the carpeted floor. If you have a carpeted floor, that's great. You could also do this in bed if you like, depending on what kind of couch you have. Some people will even do this sort of thing on like something with a deep seat, like a really deep futon might work nicely for this. But use whatever you have around the house. If you have a ton of throw cushions and blankets and nothing else, that's totally fine. As we go through, a couple of different pointers, so keep it comfortable. Whatever you do, the idea is restorative yoga for sleep, right? So we want to be comfy, sleepy. If you feel like you could just about fall asleep, fantastic, you're in the right place. And the other pointer is that we can use the bolsters in different configurations. So I can turn them sideways, I can prop things on one another, I can pile them up in any way. So this is how I've set myself up for our first pose. We're gonna do supported child's pose, a nice sleepy one. This is a great one to do even if you can't sleep in the middle of the night. It's a nice way to rest even if you're not completely asleep. So let's go ahead and get started with our restorative yoga poses for sleep. We'll start like this. So I have the bolsters set up so that they're gonna go underneath my spine to support my body. In a normal child's pose, we might be hanging in airspace or just on the floor, and this will prop us up so we have more of like a sleeping baby kind of feel. You may like to take your spare yoga mat and put it underneath your heels so it's more comfortable for your knee joints and hips. This isn't the highest supported child's pose in the world. You might like something a bit higher. You might like, I don't know, to fold stuff up and get a little bit more height. But for me and how I like to be, I thought this was the most comfortable way. We could have also, if you were taller than me, put the bolsters longwise and the block longwise. Really, if you are comfortable, that's fine. In order to figure out this configuration, it took me a couple tries. So I lay down on it, it wasn't quite right. I had to reset. I lay down on it again, and who knows, now that I've started talking, maybe I'm gonna lie down on it and I'm gonna think I need to move it around again. Whenever we're ready, we can go ahead and lie down, making the most of our super comfy bolsters, blankets, cushions, whatever you have. And then we probably want to turn the head to one side or another. So if we have a favorite side, we can turn the head that way, or we might like to stack our hands and put our forehead on the hands. Whichever feels the most comfortable, the most natural, whichever position you could just about fall asleep, let's go there now and breathe comfortably. And you notice I'm readjusting, so as you hold the pose, feel free. As you settle in, we can move our props.
At some point we might like to make it even, turn the head to look the other way.
Restorative child's pose is a great way to bring awareness to the breath in the back of the body. So with each deep breath in, we can relax the abdominal muscles, allow the shoulders to relax, and feel how the back slightly moves with a deep inhale. When you're ready, let's press up and move on. Our next pose is a supported twist. So I like to start lying on my side, and we'll have a blanket, or you may prefer a pillow, underneath the head, something to go between the knees, and then something to go in behind to support the back. So we can start in a side lying position. I find that an easy way to get into it. There are often other recommended methods of getting into it that you may have seen. This to me just feels like the easiest one. So we take one bolster between the knees and then another one right in behind the low back to just prevent me from rolling over. So with that in there, we should probably feel more supportive than without it. The pelvis is kind of free in space to go where it will. But then if we have this in behind the low back and the pelvis, it keeps us from going too far. So then once we're in this side lying position with some nice support in our low back, we might actually like a little bit of a blanket or cushion underneath the bottom knee as well. If it feels like it's too much of a twist, we can stay where we are. We can drape the top arm in behind the back on top of the bolster, or we can bring our arms to a T position or with bent elbows for a gentler stretch on the shoulders, and then adjust the head whichever direction feels best. So some of us will have a lot of rotation in the neck, and we can turn to look away from the knees, and some of us less so. Go to a comfortable place where we can feel the body kind of sigh into it, this sort of as we get into the right position. And that'll be different from day to day as well. So sometimes we might have our favorite way to do a certain pose, and then another day comes along and we get into that pose and it's just not working the right way. It doesn't feel quite right. We can't settle into it. Let's try it a different way. Maybe just for today, we're doing it with bent elbows. Maybe just for today, we're taking hands to belly. Finding a way here to do it in a way that feels conducive to sleep. As before, allowing for adjustments as our bodies settle in. And then we can focus our awareness on taking a deep breath in and a long, slow breath out. So often the recommendation for sleep is to inhale for a count of 4 and exhale for a count of 8. And let's take some time to switch to the other side. Just because we did the pose one way on the first side doesn't mean it's going to work out that way on the second side. So we might like a slightly different variation, different propping or bolstering. But now you get to see how I put the prop in behind my back. So coming to a side lying position, something under the head, something between the knees, maybe something just under the bottom knee. And to help us get into the right position, our top arm can do a big sweep around and drape behind the back. That might be a nice, less intense variation of a twist. Or we might like to come into a much deeper twist if that allows. So adjusting the shoulders, letting the twist happen. Our arms might like a different position on this side. Our legs might like a slightly different position on this side. Really listening to the body and responding appropriately. And there's no rule that says one side has to perfectly match the other side. So let's do it in a way that feels comfortable and supportive, knowing that both sides of our body are a little bit different. Our pose on each side can be a little bit different. We can keep going with that pattern, inhaling for 4, exhaling for 8. We may like to add breath retention at the end. So inhale for 4, comfortable pace. Exhale for 8, comfortable pace. And then with the lungs empty, pause and hold the breath for a moment. If this feels good and helps you to feel sleepy, perfect. Breath retention isn't for everyone, so of course, please do breathe comfortably and naturally. Come out of this and any other pose, We can roll to one side and use the strength of our arms to push up. We're going to finish with legs up the wall. This is a classic one to help with sleep. It helps relieve swelling in our lower legs and generally helps to shift us from like a go, go, go to a very restful, relaxed state. So even if we don't fall asleep in this position or fall asleep after doing this sequence, we're still getting the benefit of rest, which is almost as good as being asleep, and in fact has its own benefits separate from sleep. So for our last pose, we won't need our bolsters, although you may like something under your pelvis or under the head. So often it's done having a little bit of support under the pelvis with our legs up the wall. Or if while you're lying down, you sort of feel like your head is falling backwards, I would say then put something underneath your head. I'm actually not going to use any props while I do this, but since we might get chilly, you can always take the blanket and put it on your body as its original use intended. Okay, so here's the easiest way to get into legs up the wall. It can be a bit of a toughie. So we're gonna go like this. We're gonna curl up into a fetal position with our bums touching the wall and then use the strength in our core to bring our legs up. If we are too far away from the wall, it's not gonna be very comfortable. We're not gonna have a lot of support. We're gonna have airspace between the wall and our bums. But if we get right up against it, if we feel too close, we can kind of wiggle out of the way. If we're way too far, just come out, try again, reset. Okay, here we go. So coming into a fetal position, curled up in sometimes what we call baby pose, is not very graceful. We shimmy ourselves back until we're right up against the wall. I can feel the wall under my backside. And now I'm gonna use the strength in my arms and core to bring my legs up. I'm actually a little too close, so I'm going to just shimmy a bit out of the way. And here I am, fantastic. Legs up the wall. So once we are in place, we've adjusted ourselves, we can tuck our shoulder blades down our backs. And once we're here, this is where you might notice, oh yeah, I do feel I need a little something under my head, in which case, perfect. We have our stuff within arm's reach if we need it. And we might really cool down while we're here. So of course, we can get our blanket to help us feel warm and cozy. Another variation of this pose has it done with the legs wider than hip width apart. It's a common recommendation to hold this pose for up to 20 minutes to achieve full relaxation. One of the many benefits is that as we drain any swelling and various fluids from the lower extremities, they return to our core and can then be flushed out. So my recommendation would be to use the bathroom one last time before tucking yourself into bed. And in this way, it's actually a great way to help sleep through the night if you find that you are up many times to use the bathroom. When you are ready to come out of this pose, once more we can rewind into that fetal position. And press up using the strength of our arms. I wish you sweet dreams. Namaste.